Hi, Misha here, and I'm sure most of you on this personal channel are aware of Jay and I's recent attempted review of this firearm here, the Palmetto State Armory AK-74, or just PSA 74. And it didn't go well. This is chambered for 5.45 by 39, a cartridge we routinely have very good success with. This is an example. Here's my Bulgarian-made Arsenal SLR 105A1, quite possibly the best 5.45 gun imported into the country. Possibly. So I thought I would kind of give more of a unfiltered personal thought thing here. Things maybe I shouldn't or can't say on the main channel. Anyway, for those of you who maybe need a refresher, here's the range footage from this PSA 74 being fired. Start off with the PMag that it came with.
Oh, nope. You got a spent casing in there.
Yep. I thought something felt a little off.
Yep. There's still a live round in the mag. Okay. A little more left there. Oh, interesting.
It's empty. I think the live might have come out. Let's check and see.
It is. It's clear.
Yep. Clear.
All right.
We had a Russian mag loaded and ready to go. And then we heard this. So let's see what's in this gun.
Yeah, your spent casing is in your rear trunnion somehow. It fell out.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a first.
Yeah.
Had it happen on MD5 types before. Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen a round go rear of the bolt carrier before.
Yeah. All right. All right. Now with the Russian mag.
Clear.
He's going to give the PSA 74 a try with a Polish mag, I believe.
Stock is really loose. Yeah, this is Polish. Shooting, this is Red Army Standard 5.45.
I had wolf earlier.
Stiff safety. Hearing protection coming off. Click, no bang. Okay, still got rounds in the magazine. We have a live round in the chamber. Fully cratered primer.
You want to show it? Yeah. So that could be ammo if it's real cratered.
Yep, fully cratered.
So.
Okay. Click, no bang. Alright, we better check the bore and everything, make sure there's no obstructions.
Roger that. Well, Jay's gonna finish that mag out in the SLR 104, and then we're gonna explain what just happened.
Same mag, same ammo as the PSA AK-74. One thing I noticed on the PSA here is the stock is really loose. See how much play there is there. Obviously, that's something of a cosmetic issue, but it's worth pointing out. And of course, it's disassembled because we are diagnosing the issues. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this mag out. That did not work in the PSA, in the SLR. See if we have the same issue.
1
Okay, click, no bang. And it's clear.
So when Jay took the top cover off the PSA, the bolt carrier kind of jumped out at him. And the firing pin was kind of in the forward position, but when I started shaking it, I heard a noise. And I know these are floating firing pins, but it didn't sound quite right. So when I pushed it to the rear, it no go forward anymore. I'm even pushing with my finger, and it's not protruding. So I think either it broke or the tip mushroomed, which is probably more likely. And so once it went in there, I can push it out, but now it's stuck, as you see. So if I push it back, yeah, it sticks in the front, which means probably not broken, probably mushroomed or something. Also noticed a little bit of flaring back here at the tail, which is a little odd.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever noticed that on an AK before.
That area doesn't usually get, because the carrier tail usually takes any abuse, not the tail of the bolt itself. The extractor is still there. A little bit of wear there too, if you see. Could just be standard wear in. So that's the bolt, and so that's the culprit there. Is that thing... Yeah, it's bent or flared or something. Alright. We'll move on. Here's the interior of the gun itself. At first glance from Jay and first feel from me, we didn't notice anything. If you look at the locking recesses up front, there's not any obvious mushrooming or, malforming. But, and all the rivets seem fine.
Yeah.
I don't have any 545 headspace gauges, so can't check headspace out here right now. As Jay pointed out, the stock is loose, but that's actually something that's been pointed out by a few others and something noticed before. But it is interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Sample size of 1. This has just been our experience so far today. Having no expectations going into it. So.
Alright, well, let's go to the table for some final thoughts. So, when I was shooting it, really the first rattle out of the box with Wolf, I had a small, light jam failure. And yeah, as people pointed out in the Mishaco channel video, I did sweep the spent casing into the back, but that's only because it was just sitting there in the breech. It would have fallen in the back if the gun had been tipped upwards. It was definitely not dealt with properly by the firearm. And that, like I said, was with Wolf. And then Jay tried Red Army Standard, and that's when the firing pin froze up. And many people said, well, that's because debris from the primers kind of collected in the firing pin channel, which could very well be true. Something certainly collected in there, although it's also possible the firing pin itself mushroomed or malformed. Some have said that this gun just doesn't like Red Army Standard. Now, we received this from Chris Bartocci, who maybe put 120 rounds through it. So it had a couple of mags through it, but it was still well under 200 rounds when we got it. He told me that it did not like Hornady. That with Hornady, it was having ruptured primers, punctured primers. And he said it was because of the Hornady ammo, the primers they were using. He could very well be right on that. I don't know. But also in the comments of that PSA review video, some people said they had trouble with debris getting in the firing pin channel from Silver Bear, or the lacquer from Silver Bear kind of gumming up the chamber. So what? Red Army Standard? Nah. Hornady? No. Silver Bear, no. So what? Wolf is the only 5.45 by 39 that this likes. That's about the only one left. There's not a ton of ammo makers out there. And even with Wolf, I experienced one failure out of just 2 magazines. So, yeah. Now, if 5.45 were kind of a problematic cartridge, known for maybe not being reliable, or if the guns had a history, that would be one thing. But honestly, these are the first real failures we've ever experienced with this cartridge. While I picked up this 105 quite recently, a few years ago, I've owned a 5.45 by 39 gun, a Romanian SAR-2, since early 2003. So 18 years I've owned one of these. So I've put a few rounds downrange. I've used Tantals, Segas, Vepers, and other arsenals, plus several parts kits builds, using Wolf, Red Army Standard, Silver Bear. The only one I haven't tried is Hornady, just because it's new and I haven't had a need. And they've all run fine. In fact, I'll look and see what I have in the archives for clips of us shooting 5.45 guns, and I'll throw them in here in kind of a montage. But sorry, there won't be any Yoda to kind of be in the background. Baseline, let's run a mag through the SLR 104FR. Arsenal 104FR. FR. 104 FR. 104 FR.
Helps if I don't have the safety on.
Unless it's a Remington.
That's accurate. I mean, your statement, not the gun. I'm sure the gun's not. Clear.
104 you are.
You look so much taller than me when you're up on the step.
I'm just not crouching.
It's clear.
104 you are.
So this hollow sun red dot so far is working really well. It's very clear. Really like the chevron on it. And weirdly enough, it seems to be pretty close already out of the box.
I think it's awesome too.
Clear.
FM, RPK-74. FM, RPK-74. We've always just had good luck with that cartridge and the guns that were chambered for it. But most all of them we've used over the years have been imports built in original factories. This PSA, to their credit, they didn't have TDP, they didn't have blueprints, they didn't have tooling, they didn't have engineers from Ishevsk. They had to reverse engineer it. So you have to give credit there for that. But it's a learning process. It took Russia from 1946 really through 1959, if you want to be honest about it, to get the original AK and 7.62x39 really where they wanted it. And likewise with the AK-74, they began work on it, starting with the cartridge to be fair, as early as 1965. And they really didn't fully adopt it until 1973-74. It didn't go into service until 76. And even up through the 80s, they were making changes to things like the muzzle device, some of the geometry for the top cover. And even then, into the 1990s, they came up with the AK-74M. It took them a long time, and that's with the full backing of a communist state. And that's for mass production. So it's no wonder that a private company that's wanting to make a few hundred, few thousand guns, I mean, this one's serial number is in the upper 400s. From what people have said, they're up to about 700 now. So they've made fewer than 1,000 of these. So I want to be fair. I really do. This isn't just bullshit. This is the truth. Manufacturing is hard. But I think people really give them a pass because they like the company and they like the customer service. And I have to admit, and I need to go back to that original video and count, there are loads of people that say, I had a Pimento State Armory AK and I sent it back and their customer service was great. But here's the thing, they say it over and over. If you read a video comment section on, say, the Wasser or the Zastava M70 or Segas or Vepers or whatever, there are a few duds. There are. Especially with like Wassers and some of the Zastavas. But it's maybe, you know, 1 in every 100 comments or more. With these PSAs, it feels like it's 1 in every 10. It just seems, and this is just perception, so it could be totally wrong, that the return rate is much higher with PSAs than it is with most anything else. Another thing, people really love their cold hammer forged Chromeline barrels. In fact, with, say, Zastava, one of the big gripes was it wasn't chrome-lined. So much so that Zastava last year changed it and started chroming their 7.62x39 barrels for the very first time. That's fine. That's responding to the market. With Kalashnikov USA, they are chrome-lined, but they're button-rifled. Some people complain about that. Fair enough. Not cold hammer forged. But with this PSA, this barrel is button rifled and non-chrome lined, and people just kind of glossed over that. I don't know. I feel like if it was a Kalashnikov USA and wasn't chrome lined, or if it was an import and it wasn't chrome lined, people would be raising hell. Maybe I'm wrong. They also talk about how it has forged parts. Yeah, that's good. That's necessary. But actually on original AKs, starting in the 70s, most of the parts were actually cast. In fact, the ones that only really remained forged were the front trunnion and the bolt. Believe it or not, the bolt carrier, the rear trunnion, the gas block, they all went to casting. Casting with very tight QC, but casting. So it's not as simple as casting bad, forging machined, milled good. You can have good castings, Ruger proves that very well, and you can have bad forgings, bad machining. Ohio Rapid Fire with their Galil receivers prove that because they got the heat treat wrong. So, yeah, just because something's forged doesn't mean you're automatically good to go. Another thing, and this will be hard to show you on camera, but oh well. The feel of this gun, I'm just going to pick it up. You won't see me, I'm sorry, but the way it racks, the way it feels as a calm block AK just does. But then when you pick up a gun like the PSA, I could say the same thing for like RAS 47s, the way they feel is just different. They're not rougher, and they're smooth, but they just, I don't know, they feel different. And that's, most of you probably think I'm crazy, don't know what I'm talking about, but maybe a couple of you get what I'm saying. It's just, I bet it's a lot like driving a car. There's just a feel to something. Now, one issue that Jay really didn't like was the loose stock. And yeah, it's pretty loose for what it is, because usually these left side folders lock up rock solid. Really, for me, I don't like it, but it doesn't bug me as much as it bugged him. But, you know, to each their own. Me, I hate loose handguards. He also didn't like the interface in the back, how it looks. In fact, you know, let's grab the 104. Now that we've had the 105 out here for a minute. Ah, this is a nice gun. Russian furniture on it. Rumor was back in 2004 when they made these that they were actually using a lot of leftover parts shipped to Bulgaria in the late 80s, early 90s. But yeah, these are really among the best. It's just they came with nice triggers. This was actually Arsenal's first stamped receiver gun, too. Anyway, yeah, let's grab that 104. Alright, here we go. Again, real quick, here's the PSA rear. And this is kind of the play it has. Now, someone said there was a spring or something, a screw you could use to tension that up. I really haven't looked into it, so I'm sure they're right, but I've never had to do that with any of the other folders here. This is the SLR 104FR, essentially the same gun as that 105, but it's a side folder. Here's its rear. You can definitely see how this is mated up differently. The latch is inside because it's got the old school. Notice how it takes a little more force to lock it. And when it's on, I sit you down here, I can't move it at all. And that's with the surplus Russian stock on it. I'll let you look at the interface there versus there. It definitely does mate up a little nicer. Another thing while we're doing it, here's the grip retaining plate. It's the size of the pistol grip. It has a small little round section behind the trigger. Here's the one that's on the PSA. It's much larger. It comes out much further. And it has this very square piece behind the trigger. It's good that they put the reinforcing plate in there. I'm not going to complain. But aesthetically, I find this one just to be more up my alley. There's always going to be a little play in AK top covers, at least most of the time. This one seems to have a little more up here. But I'm not going to say I haven't seen Sega's, but here's this one at the front. There's none. Typically the front is pretty tight. It's the rear that might be a little loose. That's another thing that I pointed out in that video. Is this handguard retainer. I can rotate it with my finger all the way around. On this one, I can't move it. And this is not a new gun. I bought this 7 years ago. and I put maybe 3,000 rounds through it. Not a huge round count, to be fair, but yeah. Safety. About the same tightness. Trigger. Trigger's trigger. And you're always going to have some play in these 74 muzzle devices, so I'm not going to ding it for that at all. They have their spring-loaded retainers, so they're not going anywhere. I will say, I'm sure a lot of people like the more glossy, even finish on the Palmetto State, whereas this one has the military paint over phosphate. But I do really like how the magwell dimples look on these versus these. These are more angled. These are more kind of straight. I mean, there's a curve to it, but either you feel me or you don't. And if you don't, that's okay. This is just AK details. And flipping it back over, this does have the scope mount here, and so does the PSA. So yeah. Of course, the problem today, these 104 FRs were everywhere from about 2014 to 2016, and they were reasonably priced back then. Well, they started off at about $1,200, but then they were put on sale for $1,000. But back then, not that many people wanted them, because you know how it is. When something's readily available, people don't feel the urge. Plus, that was right around the time of the Russian sanctions on Kalashnikov concern, Izhmash. So people were trying to buy up Segas and just kind of not focusing on these, which is a shame. A lot of people think, and I'm not sure I agree, but maybe I do, maybe I don't, that the 104 FR is better than the SGL-31. It's a close run race. I don't know. I just know that we had more failures in one very short range day with the PSA 74 than essentially we've had in all other 545 guns in the 10 years Jay and I have been doing this channel together, and probably in the nearly 20 years that I've been shooting 545 by 39 guns in my entire life. So that has to say and count for something. Now, again, to Palmetto State's credit, Monday I already received a phone call from one of the owners, one of the brothers, and he wasn't mad, but he wanted to know what happened, and they've already issued a call tag to send this back. And they requested, not demanded, very politely asked if we would be willing to do a follow-up review after they had a chance to fix it. Obviously we will, because that's only honest, that's only fair. The thing is, I'm not used to sending guns back. We've only ever had to do it a handful of times. And to be fair, probably these issues, like the firing pin, we could fix ourselves, but since it's a warranted gun and they want to see what went wrong, it's really probably good to let them handle it. If debris from the cartridges got in the firing pin channel, okay, I can accept that, but it obviously stuck it quite hard. And more importantly, in all the other 545 guns we've shot over the years, that's not happened. Those are the same primers that have been run through all the other guns. Heckman hasn't froze up those bolts, those firing pins. So obviously something's wrong with either the firing pin geometry or the channel that it's in. Maybe it's oversized, maybe there's rough edges, I don't really know. The other issues, like the loose retainer, that's easy enough to fix. The stock, I would say that's just more of a tighten up your QC thing. maybe install it a little quicker. Basically, my attitude would be slow down, maybe raise the price point $50 and improve your quality control before things leave the door. Because it seems like some palmetto states really do leave great, perfectly good to go, make it 3, 4, 5, 6,000 rounds. But others, based on the comments left in our other video, have to go back a time or two before they're right. And that comes down to quality control, to final testing and checking. And it seems to be one area that Palmetto State maybe skimps on to get their low price point. Just a theory there. Huh, I just noticed the lug is actually AKM spec, not AK-74. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not used to sending guns back. And the thing is that this is already having issues at a couple of 100 rounds. Would I ever trust it to go 10,000 rounds? Because I do have remaining AKs that have made it to that point and that work fine. I trust an import, especially something like this Vepr here, to go the distance to the point where something like the barrel's just worn out. But would I ever really trust a US gun? I don't know. It will be interesting as time goes by, because these 74s, and even a lot of the 7.62, 39 PSAs, they just came out. There aren't many out there that have been put through thousands and thousands of rounds in time. It will be interesting to see, as if time goes on, if the issues kind of abate, if they fix them with new production and repair all the existing guns, or if they just keep doubling down and more keep getting reported. Keep in mind, a lot of guns, I'm thinking of like the Century C39, had a decent reputation when they first came out, but it was only after multiple guns started hitting several thousand rounds that issues, in the case of the C39 with the receiver, became known. I'm not saying this will happen to Palmetto State, I'm just saying opinions do change, for better or worse. On top of that, if you want a 7.62x39 AK, I get that. Heck, if you want a 5.56 AK because of how common that cartridge and how many varieties are in the USA, I get that. What I really don't understand is the desire to have a USA-made 5.45 AK. That is such a specific Russian round, and it is a niche round. I know there's kind of the 5.45 master race. Frankly, that's bullshit. 5.45 has gained and waned in popularity so many times since it was first introduced here around 1997. It's never going to gain hold. Heck, it didn't gain traction in the world. Most nations either stuck with 7.60x39 or went to 5.56. And those that did adopt 5.45, like East Germany, Poland, they got rid of it as quick as they could. Those that are still left using it, Russia, because it's their round, and Romania and North Korea, they're mostly using it because they don't have the money to change. Ukraine also still uses it, but that's kind of complicated. And the truth is, 5.56, 5.45, there's not a clear better round, frankly. Those who say that they're comparing commercial 5.56 with military 7.6, 5.45. If you were to compare military, say 2.62, or, heck, even 55A1 with 7.6, you'd have a much different result. It just seems like if you're going to do 5.45, which I do like 5.45, as you know, you might as well try to find a real gun or a parts kit and have a gun built. There's a lot of Bulgarian kits still out there. You could probably still dig up a Tantal kit somewhere. There are options. And recently, 5.56 AKs, there's been a lot more in the options department. And I'm kind of interested to see new 5.56 guns coming out. I guess I just don't get it. I tried. I wanted to give this a shot. Jay and I sincerely thought it would be boringly reliable. We did not expect the results that we got. Not at all. But it's what happened. I don't know. I just don't get it. People will say that, well, you know, why can't America do an AK? Because they don't have the blueprints. Because they don't have all those years, those decades of research that Russia had. I mean, the AK is also kind of optimized for 1950s or at the most 1970s Soviet manufacturing, which was very different from what we have in 2020, 2021. Plus, those guns are being made in huge numbers, hundreds of thousands, millions, whereas you have commercial manufacturers like this that take damn near a year to make 800. Big, big difference. These were meant to be an assembly line gun. The initial investment to set up an AK production line is very expensive, but then after that initial large expense, the individual guns are quite cheap. That worked well for Russia and has worked well for other nations like, say, Romania. But they're also filling large military and export contracts. Palmetto State, how many people do you really think are going to buy 5.45 by 39 guns? It's not that many. The reason people were talking about it was because they couldn't get one. But again, as I said early on, when the 104FR was available, or the 104UR, the crank version, people bought them. They had a good reputation. There were not bad reviews out there. But people thought, mañana, I'll do it tomorrow. Same thing goes with the Veprs in 545 or the Segas in 545. When they are available, people aren't as interested. It's when they're not available that people seem to get really keen on these guns. And I don't want people to roast Palmetto State. I applaud what they're trying to do. I applaud their customer service. But I also do think the fact that so many people have had to use their customer service says something in and of itself. I think they've done a simple calculation. They feel it's financially advantageous for them to cut back on final checking, final QC, and just deal with customer issues if and when they arise. That's one way of doing it. But it also means it's a commercial grade gun. No military, even no police gun would be made with that kind of standard or attitude. Those kinds of guns go through full testing before they leave the factory because people really do rely on them for their life and sometimes the lives of others. That's not what Palmetto State's making here with the PSA 74 and dare I say it, their other guns. They are making commercial range guns. Match guns maybe, class guns, but they're not making guns that are going to equip a military or even police forces. And it shows. Because good customer service doesn't matter for shit if you're in a firefight and your gun goes down. Doesn't matter what will happen tomorrow. But on a civilian level, like with us, the gun went down at the range. Could we have fixed it at the range? Yeah, probably, but we had other stuff to get through and we were burning daylight, plus the cost of ammo now. But in a real situation, a real world situation, you need a gun that's dependable, at least up to a number of rounds. You can say, okay, at 5,000 rounds replace the spring, or at 10,000 rounds replace this, component, whatever. But this is failing, even if it's just relatively minor failures, at 200 or 300 rounds or less. Now, we're not talking about cracked trunnions or headspace setting back. At least I don't think so. To be fair, I didn't have 545 headspace gauges, so I don't know what the headspace is on this. And I would wager a lot of you don't either, because you probably don't own 545 gauges. I've never needed them. All my guns have been imports, or built by builders that I trust. But if it's going to have these kinds of issues at a couple of hundred rounds, I am concerned what people might run into at a couple of thousand rounds. Or at the very least, if a stock's getting this loose, and I dust cover this loose at a couple of hundred rounds, what are they going to look like at 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 rounds? I don't know. I just don't know. I want to be fair, I want to be honest. But if I'm being honest with you here and now, just us, this gun has no interest to me. It has no soul. I know that's weird. It just doesn't. Like this Vepr. Yeah, it's a semi-automatic, made from new parts. But it was made in the same factory, set up in World War II to supply the Red Army. It was carried through the 1960s, making light machine guns, and moved into the 21st century, still making light machine guns. The same workers, the same jigs, the same parts went into this gun as what could be shipped to the Russian Federation's army today. That's kind of neat to me. But this, it'd be one thing if it was a one-to-one clone or copy. I could still see value in that. For example, the Kalashnikov USA KR KP9 is kind of neat for being a US copy of the Vitiaz, the Sega 9. But this is not. This is an AKM in some aspects, an AK-74 in some aspects, an AK-74M in some aspects, and its own thing in a lot of other aspects. And this is not me criticizing. This is Palmetto State. They say they didn't set out to make a clone or copy. Fair enough. But what did they make? I just don't know. And let's end the video with my original SAR-2 here. See, to me this gun was interesting. I had an SAR-1, you could get the SAR-3 in 5.56. I had to special order this in 5.45 because at that time, 2003, the ammo only came in a couple of times a year. It wasn't necessarily expensive, but it was hard to find. And of course, because these were imports, they did come in neutered. But I had a lot of fun customizing this and making it into a PA-86 clone. One of the first things I did was I picked up a Romanian stock here. This is the one I originally picked up back in 2003. Yeah, I was a bad boy. I picked up a folder during the tail end of the assault weapons ban. Later I got a upswept cocking handle, bolt carrier for it from K-VAR, the right handguards, and a few years ago I finally put on the right 22mm front sight base. They gave me the bayonet lug back and everything. And this gun has been extremely reliable. I'm not sure how many rounds I put through it. Over 5,000, probably 6 or 7. And I'm not going to say there was never a failure. 18 years is a long time. There might have been 1 or 2, but nothing that ever stood out. I'll put it like that. And yeah, it has Romanian park, but it also has a cold hammer forged Chromeline barrel. It's just been fun. The only real issue these had was the trigger slap, because of the US fire control group they came with. Easy solution, replace the fire control group. It's just been a great gun, and it was a great introduction to 5.45. But I have to wonder, in 18 years, how many people will be saying that about a Palmetto State PSA 74, or for that matter, even a Riley Defense AK-74. I just don't know how these will hold up. And I'm not speaking from one point of view only. From a collector's point of view, this will have very limited, if any, value. The only thing really kind of unique about it is the fact that it is in 5.45x39, only because there are so few guns in that chambering made in America. But I'm far from just a collector. From a shooting point of view, the reliability and durability are just not proven. The nice thing about imports like the SAR-2, they benefited from all of the testing and field use of their select fire parent rifle, in this case the PA-86. This one does not. I just don't know how a person really could trust it. It just doesn't have that pedigree. So I just don't see, from a collecting or shooting point of view, either one, where this really fits in. The one area that it does is cost point. This is arguably the cheapest 5.45x39 gun on the market today. So if money is the only factor, then this does have a big draw. But, and I say this not only as a consumer myself, but also having worked with many customers over a long period of time, buy once, cry once is a real thing. Save up for something good, and that'll be your only purchase. Buy something inexpensive like this, you'll probably, if you end up liking 5.45, eventually save up and buy Sega, Vepr, Arsenal, what have you, which means not only do you have that cost, you also have the original cost of the PSA or the Rally or the whatever. So in the long run, sometimes going cheap can actually be more expensive. If that sounds elitist, you know what? Fuck it. It's the truth, though. That's how spending works. Sometimes if you fork out the money for something good quality from the beginning, in the long run, you save money. Plus, it's just a pain in the ass to keep shipping guns like these back and forth to the manufacturer for warranty repair work. I'm sorry, but that's an annoyance. And if they have to replace the gun, then it has to go to your dealer again. Yada, yada, yada. It's bullshit. I just think a lot of it, all this stuff for guns like these, and not just this, but cheaper guns, people try to justify them. In the end of the day, it's like it's cheap. But here's the thing: you don't need a 5.45 gun. I'm sorry, you don't. It is a luxury. It's a want. I'm telling you, save up, even if it takes you a year, and get something that you know has a track record. And it might seem expensive, but consider how much you spend on your cell phone bill, on your bar tab, on your eating out, on all the various things in life. It's not hard, really, to save up an extra $100 a week if you are working. Just instead of going out, plunk it down. That's exactly how I afforded this SAR-2 back on a grad student's budget. It took me months to save up for it, even though it was only $400 retail back then. But I wanted one, and so I didn't go out to the bar or the club. I didn't, do things like that. It was my decision. It may not be yours. But a lot of times when people say they can't afford something, that means they don't want to afford something. And again, if that sounds elitist, I really don't give a fuck. It's true, and that's how you save money too. Even if you don't want to spend it on a gun. There's a lot of stuff you can cut out that people just blow money on. You know it's true. Good grief, look at the cost of fast food these days. And again, I just don't know in the long run the PSA is really going to be that much of a savings if you have to send it back 3 or 4 times. If you have to waste ammo at the range, especially at the cost of ammo today. And then if you ultimately end up selling it or not getting it back and buying something else, an Arsenal might be, say, $2,000 right now. If you wait a year, they might be $3,000. I don't know. I've tried to see the point to guns like the PSA-74, and I just don't. They don't make sense from a shooting point of view, certainly not from a defensive point of view, and from a collecting point of view. Now, that backs off a bit if you're talking about a standard AK-74 39. I kind of get that more. For one thing, by now, PSA starts to make a pretty durable, dependable gun. And that's more standard. If you want just an AK, that makes sense. But if you want a 5.45 gun, you're already pretty deep into the AK rabbit hole. And if you're that deep into it, it's time to put your big boy pants on, nut up, and look for a deal. And you don't have to pay the crazy prices on Gunbroker. You can still find Vepers and unconverted Segas and even SAR2s for not crazy money. You might have to wait a month or 6 months or whatever, or you might find one next week. That's actually how that 105 worked out for me. I just decided I wanted to get one, and they've been going for $1,500 or $2,000 already at that point. And I just happened to get lucky and find an unfired one for like $1,000. A total fluke. It didn't have the box or anything, but I didn't care about that, so I'm not a box collector, as I often say. And one final thing, and I've said this in a lot of videos too. Now's not a good time to be buying AKs. Any guns, really. If you've lived this long without a 5.45 gun or even an AK, live a little longer. Give it another 3, 4, maybe 6 months. Let the market slow down. Let prices drop. Let things calm down. You might find that, yeah, you can afford a lot more than you think once things settle in. Because we're in a bubble, and eventually it will burst. And as I said, this is a want, not a need. And I get it. I like guns. I like buying things. I'm like any of you. I want it now, now, now. But typically what I do is I set a price that I'm willing to pay, and I just don't go over that. And again, I save for it, and I usually sell something when I want to get a new gun. That's just kind of how I roll. Don't know. But we'll do a follow-up on the main Mishaco channel when this gets back. We're about to put a label on it and ship it back to Palmetto State. Again, the firing pin thing, I'm sure they can fix it. I mean, it's probably just stuff collected in the channel. But the question to me is, will it happen again? And if so, at what round count? And I'm sure Jay will mention the stock. Again, that doesn't really bug me as much, but to each their own. He has his thing, and that is 100% legitimate. Just as much as any complaint you or I might have, because that's kind of how this all works. I don't know. I just thought I'd do kind of a hangout talking about this and the gun market in general. I guess it's not so much that I mind that people give PSA so many opportunities. I think it's actually good. I just wish they would give every company the same grace, the same opportunity to fix their mistakes. It seems like many other companies, the first time they put out one bad gun, then it's all over. They're the worst thing ever. I'm not defending Century, but yeah, I don't think Century was ever given near as much benefit of the doubt as Palmetto State has been given in recent years. Although they did definitely shit the bed with the Visca. No arguments there. Even they would admit that, honestly. But yeah, I haven't done a gun video in a while, so I thought I'd give you kind of a long one here. What do you think? Let me know. We can definitely talk about the USA made AKs. So far, my favorites, the KR9 from Kalashnikov USA. I think they did that one quite well. But I do hope that we get an AK market here. But I really do think Palmetto State needs to put a little bit more money and time into their guns. I think just a little bit more, and they'd be there. I think they're trying to maybe cut just one corner too many to meet a price point. And sometimes you just gotta make the gun right, and then the price falls where it falls. But we'll see. With that, if you could like, share, and subscribe. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.